Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Thursday morning, 5:30 in the morning. That means it's time for another episode of Sketch and Copy Live. That's when we pull a toy out of the toy box, a random object out of the random object randomogrifier, if you will. Just going to spritz these watercolors real quick, make sure give them some time to soak up and be nice and juicy. We want them moist so that when it comes time to use them, we can just tap into them and not have to scrape them. We pull a random object out of the Random Object Randomogrifier every day at 5:30 around here, but especially we do it on Thursdays. Today's random object is a blue Tang. Blue Tang. You might be most familiar with the blue Tang from Dory, from Disney's Finding Nemo movie. And we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. It's a very popular fish because of that. Known for its beautiful blue, deep, rich, royal blue color and its bright yellow, often bright yellow tail and spot. And then it has that black streak across the back of it. And it's very, very bold colors, very, very beautiful. And it's very popular among fish keepers for the color and cleaning that it brings to the tank. It's an algae eater, so that it does a really good job of keeping the coral in the tank clean, and that's its function in the wild, of course, is to keep the coral clean. That is the niche that it fills in the wild. I just did a huge block in there. I don't know if you can tell if it's dark enough for the overhead, but I just did a huge block in there. I just want to make sure that everything that I want to put on the page fits on the page. And honestly, I should move it over just a little bit so that it's centered with the shadow. So I'm just going to take a second here and just move everything to the right just a little bit so that when I put the drop shadow in, it will still land where I want it to. That's going to work out well anyway because the body is a little bit offset by the fins, and so that moving it over automatically made those lines for me. The blue tang species, they're fish. They don't fossilize well, so there's no real fossil record about them. We know some of their family we have found in the fossil record. Some of their family members have been found to be hundreds of millions of years old, but this particular genus, calculating only with mitochondrial DNA, and that's the DNA you get from your mother. Your mitochondrial DNA is the DNA that's inside the mitochondria that's inside the cell, and that comes directly from your mother. And your mother got her mitochondrial DNA from her mother, and her mother got it directly from her mother, and your father got his from his mother, who got it from her mother, who got it from her mother, who got it from her mother. So it only goes along the matriarchal line, and that's important because it doesn't change frequently. The only changes that occur are when the naturally occurring changes for genetic mutation. And it turns out we can calculate those things, or we can estimate a calculation on those things. And so using that, and I don't want to get too deep in the woods on science if I haven't already, but using that, they can estimate this family, this genus, to be about 20 million years old. I think it's neat that they can do that. But when you hear me say, according to mitochondrial DNA, just understand it's not something they can just pull out and say, yes, this is it. It's them saying, well, it's got enough mutations that it should be between 20 and 50 million years old. With this, we can see the deviations that this has had from its most closest relative, genetically speaking, and if it's got this many mutations, then it should be this many deviations, then it should be about this old. And that's where these things are. It's about 20 million years old as a species, living in Indonesia, and the West Pacific Ocean, and it's adapted very well to living among the coral, and it eats the algae that grows along that grows on the coral, which is a very important job for the coral, as one might imagine. Kind of like the little birds that come and eat the crap between the alligator teeth. These things keep the coral healthy by making sure they don't get clogged up with algae. And they've been doing it for 20 million years. I was talking to Ivy. I posted a picture of this on my YouTube page, my YouTube community page. If you're not familiar with my YouTube community page, I always post a reference picture in advance, usually the whole night before, just in case anybody wants to play along, just in case anybody wants to art along with me. The image is there for you to subtle hint. The image is there for you to draw along if you'd like to, and they're all there. You can go back and find months worth of random objects to play along with. But one of the things that my good friend Ivy pointed out is that this thing is disc shaped, and I've got it kind of laying on its side in front of me, and she suggested that I put it up on a little easel to hold it more upright so that I could see all the designs better. First off, I'm looking at it from an angle above going down, so it's not so flat to me, but it could easily have just been a flat disc if I were at just the right angle, because it's a pretty flat fish. And that is a challenge that we as artists have to deal with, right? Because sometimes the butterfly is landing in front of you just like this. And if you draw the butterfly just like this, then all you're drawing is a stick. And there's nothing about it that looks like a butterfly. But that's what the butterfly was doing. So how do you capture what the butterfly was doing and not make it look like a stick? And the answer is you move just a little bit to one side or the other so that you can catch the identifying marks of what actually makes it a butterfly. Or you draw another butterfly beside it so that what features you draw are recognizable as butterfly features. But I mean, it's the same. I've drawn a dancer. I drew this beautiful ballet dancer one time. She was beautiful, not necessarily the drawing. But I drew this beautiful ballet dancer one time, and she was in this pose where she was standing on one leg with her arms stretched out in front of her towards us, and her other leg was sticking out back with her toe pointed directly behind her. But from my position, all I saw was a one-legged dancer. And it's always the challenge is how do you make that into what it actually is, a ballet pose and not a one-legged dancer. I know there's gills. I just don't know where they are. I think they're under this fin right here because I can see some structure right there, but I can't really tell what that structure is. I'm going to add some hint of structure there, but I'm not really going to flesh it out. There's a little bit of separation between the snout and the body of this fish. And there's a little bit of, and it's hinted into the form of the model. I don't know that it would actually be hinted into the real life fish. The fin along the back has some ridges in it. So we're going to make sure we capture some of them. Anyway, the stark blue, black, and yellow makes it a very attractive addition to aquariums. Until the 80s, they weren't really sought after. But for some reason in the 80s, saltwater aquariums became all the rage. And they became a status symbol for wealth. And and all of the ultra fine restaurants started putting big saltwater aquariums in their decor. And suddenly you had a market for people to go out and capture a whole bunch of these things all at once and try to sell them into the aquarium industry, which you never had until the 80s. It was not, it's not unheard of, but it wasn't a popular thing to do because we didn't have the technology to filter the saltwater tanks that we developed in the 80s. We didn't have the transportation facilities that we developed in the 80s. There were a lot of things that came together in the 80s to make it easier to facilitate getting a delicate fish from Indonesia to Oklahoma City Red Lobster Aquarium. And as cool as all that is, it was a horrible, horrible idea because this fish is terrible in captivity. They don't like it well. They don't like it a lot. It's not just that they don't like it a lot. They have a 90% mortality rate in captivity. 90%. 90% of all the fish that are brought into captivity die. And the methods used to capture them have been to go out and pour cyanide into an area which kills the coral and kills many of the other fish and stuns these fish, and these fish then just kind of float up and then they scoop them all up. And they do this. There's millions of the fish. The fish are not endangered. This is not an endangered animal by any stretch of the imagination, but the damage done to the coral is irreparable. It takes hundreds of years, if it's going to recover at all. It takes hundreds of years for that patch of coral to recover, and the animals around that coral to recover, and the function of filtering the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, out of the fish's atmosphere, is hampered because of the coral being damaged, because somebody wants a fish to die in their aquarium. I just think I would like to emphasize my belief that is horrible. You shouldn't be doing that. I don't know if you caught on or not, but I do not think that we ought to be bringing nature in as pets. Wild things should be left as wild things. I'm not opposed to pets. I love pets. I've got 2 dogs myself. I have a pet crawfish. I have some guppies bred for feeding them. But they're not wild caught, and the ones that I have been domesticated. They are very well suited to domestication. The crawfish in my tank has lived longer than crawfish live in the wild. Like I said, I'm not opposed to pets. I'm opposed to wild things being taken in against their will. But I'm especially against wild things being caught in a manner that poisons the environment and damages the other animals around it. But they do it. Let's see. Is there any on this side? I can't really tell. I don't think so. What are we doing here? So I'm just adding some shadows around there, trying to leave room for the colorization. I don't want the shadow to overpower the colorization. I have an extra light somewhere. Where's my extra light? Something is making an extra light. Is it this one? It is. There we go. I want to make sure I only have the one shadow to deal with. So it should be the big shadow. There, that's better. Can't see my paper now. We have to find the compromise. Yeah, I'm not against selling these things, but this one in particular doesn't do well in captivity. They don't survive. And going back to what we were talking about in the 80s, it became like a badge of honor to say I have a tank with blue tangs, because everybody knew how difficult blue tangs were to keep. And so by saying I have a tank full of blue tangs, you're saying I'm an expert aquarist. All of a sudden your expertise gave you street cred among the other hobbyists. All right, let's see. I think we could just move right on into the color. That shading was super light. So we've got a couple of challenges. We talked about it. We touched on it a minute ago. We've got a couple of challenges. You're trying not to make it look like a puddle, just a puddle of blue. And again, I'm more above it, so that's not really an issue for me. But you have to, as an artist, you have to figure out where you're going to position yourself so that you can get the appearance that you want, where people can recognize what you're drawing, and still capture what you see. And so when Ivy said maybe you should put this one up on some kind of miniature easel so that it stands up and you can see the side, that's something I struggle with all the time, because when I first started doing this, I used to just throw them up on the table, and however they landed is how I drew them. Because the point of the exercise is to not necessarily draw a blue tang. The point of the exercise is to draw what you see. And if I position the blue tang on the table in a way that makes sure it looks like a blue tang, then I run the risk of only drawing what would represent a blue tang. If you, I don't want to draw a blue tang. I want to draw this object that's on my table. Your mind will fill in the gaps and start drawing things that aren't there. Like gills. I can't see the gills. If I draw the gills, it wouldn't be true to what I can see. And if I draw something that I can't see, then I change the perspective of what I'm drawing. So it's a struggle. That's something I think about every day when I do this. Should I turn this item so that I can see the structures better, or should I leave the item on a side like a butterfly sticking straight up at me? Coffee time. Good morning, Claudia. I can't see who's watching without if they don't chat. So Claudia, if you've been there for a while, I'm sorry if I missed you, but good morning, Claudia. So again, in the 80s, they start bringing these things in as a badge of how capable of an aquarist they were. It gave them some street cred. And so they start doing that. And then in the 90s, we get Finding Nemo. And now everybody wants a a Dory in their tank. And all of the parents dutifully go out and get Dory for their little precious head babies without consideration that Dory doesn't survive in captivity. And so, and it's win-win for the aquarium industry, right? You're going to buy a fish, and you're going to tell people it's difficult to keep, and it's going to die, and you're going to blame yourself for not being a good enough aquarist to keep this fish alive. And maybe you're going to hide the fact that you can't keep this fish alive from your child, because your child is emotionally attached to the fish. And so you go buy another one, trying to match as close as you can the black and yellow markings, so the child doesn't notice that you changed fishes. Aquarium store wins. Poachers win. Everybody wins except the fish. Everybody wins except the fish. You see, like goldfish were domesticated thousands of years ago as a food source, because these things eat gum and algae off the bottom of the coral. They're not really good as a food source. They have a horrible flavor, and they carry toxins in them that you can't wash out. You can't boil or cook out. So they have terrible flavor. They're not very good as bait because they're very fragile. Their fragility makes them where they fall off the hooks very easily. They're really flappy, if you will, on a hook. So they don't do too well with the fish that would predate them. Don't like them being flappy, and so they don't attract prey very well. So their only marketable trait is their aquarium, the aquarium industry, where they just go to die. Now they have started a captive breeding program. We'll talk about that. Let me dry this real quick. What time is it? Oh my goodness, it's 5:53. Flappy. Yes, that's the technical term. Flappy. I'm just going to be texting this the hair drying. You can watch the recording of the hair drying. It's difficult for her to show up during the week. It's difficult for me to show up during the week. There we go. Yeah, Ivy's going to be upset she missed the hair drying. There'll be comments. The problem is you get carried away with that shadow. You make it too dark. And it changes the shape of your fish. Alright, where's the lid to that? Let's stop doing that before we get carried away. So, there is some good news. I don't want you to think this is all dumpster fire about this fish. I want to emphasize the fact that we shouldn't be keeping these fish in aquariums. So, I want to make that point very clear. We should not be keeping these fish in aquariums. If I didn't say it before, it's important that you understand we should not be keeping these fish in aquariums. But aside from the fact that we shouldn't be keeping these fish in aquariums, the Indonesian government has installed permitting laws now and some regulation, which is a good step in the right direction. A really good step in the right direction. They're not saying, no, you can't make a living for your family, which, you know, there's some people, if they didn't catch these fish, their family wouldn't eat. So they're not saying don't feed your family, but they are saying come get a permit and let's regulate the amount of these things we're catching. Let's have some regulation on the quotas. So they've set some quota limits. And that's a good thing. And then in the Philippines, they are instituting training programs. There's some charities that have gone in to teach more sustainable catching methods, because again, the current most popular method is to cyanide the whole area and just capture everything that floats up, and that's not sustainable. That's not good for anybody. And so they're teaching them to use only nets. They're training them on more efficient ways to use only nets to capture them for the trade, for the pet trade. The pet trade is becoming more aware of the fact that these are all wild caught. If you're buying them in a pet store, you are buying a wild caught fish, and the pet trade is making sure that the customers are aware of that. So they're being more ethical about how and where they sell them to, looking for levels of expertise. And in Hawaii, at the Oceanic Institute in Hawaii, they have developed some methods to breed them in captivity. And where they've bred them in captivity, they're more hardy. What is today? Today's the 17th. Where they bred them in captivity, they're more hardy. They're not only do they survive better and are more adapted to tank life, but they actually clean better and live longer than the wild caught fish in the wild. What is today? Today's the 17th. We did that already. And so there's some hope. It's still a complicated process, and it's still expensive. Of 2025, it's still a complicated process, and it's still expensive, but they are moving more towards that, and at least, you know, the domestication of that would go a long ways towards cutting down wild caught fish and the mortality that goes along with that. So leave the wild in the wild. It's 6 o'clock. I can tell that because the alarm's going off. My mom's alarm is going off. We have to help them keep on swimming. Keep on swimming. Yeah, Claudia posted that on my YouTube community page. Claudia Went underneath the top, I keep on swimming, swimming, swimming. The Dory song. Uh, and it's funny because that's the song that I used, the music that I used to accompany my Instagram post when I said I was setting up for the show. That was the song that I posted also. So there's my version of the blue tang compared to the photograph of the blue tang that I took yesterday. Let's see it. Thumbs up and subscribe. 8 people. So let's see this from my perspective. First off, I have to turn this microphone off, because once I disconnect it, I can't tell whether the microphone's on or off, and then the battery just runs down. And then I have to come over here and I have to stop recording and I have to eject this phone. I have to find, and I say this every day, I have to find a better way to do this so that I don't have to do this. But I have to, if I don't record directly to this phone, then I have to find a way to transfer the video to this phone so that I can edit it at work. So, from my perspective, I did get carried away with that shadow. But there it is. There it is from my perspective. So guys, that's what I did today. The little girl has already pulled an egg for tomorrow. Let's see what it might be. I blame her for it. Sometimes I pull it and just say she did it. But today she actually did it. Tomorrow it is a milk cow. Look there. Does it actually say milk cow or does it just say cow? I think it says northern cow. It's what it says. It's from Safari. It is a northern cow. Look at the detail on that thing. Look at the musculature and the sagging skin and everything on that. Anyway, if you're watching this at before 5:30 in the morning on Friday, the 18th of July, then you're watching the trailer, and we're about to draw this. So stick around. We'll get right on it. But for the rest of us, we just finished drawing Dory, the blue tang. And I thank you guys so much for joining me. Be sure and tune in tomorrow. Same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel. And then we dance. We dance until somebody says they see me dancing. And that way I know that the lag has caught up with the stream and I won't be worried about being cut off mid-sentence. And I know that you will have caught